We begin the Gemara today, Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the Amud, about 8-9 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Rab Shimon ben Elazar. This goes back to the last point of the first Mishnah of this Perek. Rab Shimon ben Elazar said in the Mishnah that Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, if you find a Kli Ampuria, then Ein Chayav Lahachris, you don't have to return it. So here the Gemara is going to explain, what is this Kli Ampuria? My Ampuria, what is this Ampuria? Amar Rab Yudah Amar Shmuel, so Rab Yudah says in the name of Shmuel, Kelim Chadashim. If these are brand new vessels, Shaloi Savatan Ha'ayin, the eyes of the owner has not yet fully seen and recognized what is this keli, so in such a case, you don't have to call it out because there's nobody that will come to claim it. Now she says the word Ampuria is made up of the words Ein Poi Ri'iyah, that the person didn't really properly see what this keli is. So the Gemara now explains, what are we talking about? Hey chidami, what's the case? I is puhu simin. If this is a keli that has a simin, kili savat na'ayim ma'yave. The fact that he didn't see it and recognize exactly the details of the keli, why does that matter? But there is a simin there that he knows of, so why wouldn't the owner claim it? Idul es puhu simin. And if this is a keli that has no simin on it, ki savat na'ayim ma'yave. So even if he owns it for a while and it's an older keli, and he recognizes keli, but without a simin, you still can't return it to the owner. So how? In what case is Rab Shimon ben Elazar making this distinction if it's a new keli or not a new keli? Answers the Gemara, Lo elam the less behu simin. Really, the case over here is that this keli does not have any simin. So then, why is he saying that if it's new you don't return it, and if it's old you do? Nafkemine, the difference over here is as follows: Lahadure litzurbe mirabanan betviyaseina. To give back, are you going to have to give back this keli to a Talmud Chacham that claims it, that it's his, even without a simin? He claims that it's his, and he says, I recognize it's mine. So as we'll see here, the Gemara is going to explain, when it comes to a Talmud Chacham, if he claims that it's his, and even if he doesn't give a simin, we believe him and we give it back to him. And so that's what it's saying over here, that a new keli, you don't have to call it out because it does not have a simin. And the owner, even a Talmud Chacham, does not recognize it. But if it's an old keli, the Talmud Chacham will recognize it and you have to give it back to him. So Savatana ayin kimle begavayu umadrinale. Once his eyes, he saw it enough, so then the Talmud Chacham would say, oh, I recognize this is mine and we have to give it back. But if his eyes did not see it enough, it's new, loy kimle begavayu, even the Talmud Chacham does not recognize it, so we don't have to give it back. And here the Gemara brings the source of a Talmud Chacham is a person that has a level of trust and honesty, and therefore we have to give it back to him even without a simin. Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel, Bahani tlas mili of the Rabbanan the Mishanim bilayu. When it comes to a Talmud Chacham, he always says the truth, besides three things that he says different than the truth. And they are b'mesechta. If he's asked regarding a certain mesechta, did you learn this yet? Did you not learn this yet? So he'll say that he did not learn it yet, just out of humility. And Taisus over here clarifies this is not in the case where a person is being asked a shayla lahalocha, something that's relevant to paskin, so then you should give the answer right away. But if a person is being asked, do you know this? Do you not know this? So out of humility, a Talmud Chacham will say he doesn't know this. The Puriya, regarding the bed that a person sleeps in. So Rashi says this is regarding marital relations, that a person will say that lav, he'll just because it's sneas, he'll refuse to talk about it. Taisus has a different shot. Taisus says Puriya is regarding a person that doesn't show up in this medrash one day. And it's because of a keri, he was tamei, he didn't want to come. And when people ask him about it, he doesn't say the truth. He just says he wasn't well and he couldn't make it. And the third thing that a Talmud Chacham will not say the truth is Bo'oshpiza, regarding a person that hosted him, and he's being asked whether his host treated him well, and the people that are asking him this question are people that you're afraid that if you say yes, they're going to take advantage of this host and they're going to go and pester him and so on. So he says no, and he's doing this so that Anoshim she'enon mehoganin shouldn't bother this person that he stayed by. This is the cases where a Talmud Chacham will not say the full truth. But otherwise, a Talmud Chacham is always honest. So, what is the relevance of defining a Talmud Chacham in this kind of way? Amazutra explains regarding the point we said before, regarding an Aveda. Whether this individual Can we return to him this lost object just by the recognition of his eyes? If you know that this is an individual, that he only switches from the truth regarding these three matters, so we have to give him back this Metzia. But if we know that even regarding other subjects, he might not say the exact truth, so then we're not going to give him back this Aveda. So you see over here a fundamental point from this Gemara, that the MS, when someone comes and tying his body, comes to a person that found something and says, I'm telling you for a certainty that this is mine, the MS, we should believe him and give it back to him. For one that found the Aveda doesn't know, and the other person is saying a tie in his body, so if you're saying a tie in his body, why shouldn't you give it back? Elamai benegeh to an Aveda with a regular person, it says in the Torah, you have to be deirish, you have to interrogate to see that it's true. So over there the Torah says, make sure he's not a Ramai. So that's why from that pasuk we learn out that by a regular person, we're chaysha that he might be a Ramai. But regarding a Talmud Chacham, where there's a chazakah, there's no concern that he's a Ramai, because we know that he always says the truth besides these three things, so therefore there's no reason to be deirish. We can give it back without a simon. Gemara brings it's just all these are all simanim, the things that show you that he always says the truth besides these three things.
I'm talking about the Gemara is explaining why chayv lachas is loy chayv lachas.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with chayv lachas. This is a separate union in Savasa Ein number. It has nothing to do with chayv.
Okay. The Gemara brings a story here. Yeah. It says, Mashar says it goes on Purim. Yeah. That they say that they're already on the level of the Layada, that regarding Purim. Okay, we're learning it right before Purim. Yeah, okay. Dr. Gemara weiter, Mazutre Chaside, Ignevle Kosede Kaspel Meshpise. Mazutre Chaside, so he was staying by someone, and there was a silver becher that got stolen there from the owner in the house. So Chazilahu Barberav, he saw one of the students over there, one of the Chachamim there, Talmid Chachamim, the Moshi Yad V'Nagi Beglim the Chavre. He washed his hands and he wiped his hands in a garment of his friend. So Amar Azutra said, "Hi no hi." This is the person that he doesn't care about the value of his friend's property, of his friend's clothing. And so if he doesn't care about that, he's the one that he suspected that he stole this becher. Kaf say he forced him. Some Rishonim say they hit him or they put him in a chedim, whatever. They forced him until they got him to admit that he's the one that stole the becher. So here you see from this story that even though the person just wiped his hands in someone's towel, he's taking from someone else's value of his garments very little, but yet if you see that, you can be concerned that he stole a silver becher. Similar over here regarding the story before, if a person is not fully honest in everything regarding money, so then you have to have a simon before you return it to him, because if he's not honest 100% in one thing, it could be that he'll steal mamish when he get to something else. Here the Gemara continues and brings a braisa of what Rab Shimon ben Elazar said regarding this halacha of this new keli. So Tanya and a braisa we learned to Maideh Rab Shimon ben Elazar bekelim chadoshim. Rab Shimon ben Elazar, so he's made there when it comes to kelim chadashim shesavatan ayin, that even though it's a new keli, but we know that the person has it already for long enough that he can recognize it. Shechayev lachris. So then you have to announce it and to return it, because a Talmid Chacham can claim it even without a simon. These are new kelim that a person will not recognize, and so therefore there's no one to claim it. So you don't have to return it. We have these branches or like hooks that are used for needles, or these little silver or these little forks that are hung on this branch. So these little branches are these little hooks that, if they're new, you're not going to recognize it at all. Or these strings that are used to hang axes on it. Now he continues and says, all of these that were said here, when are they? When we said here that these new kalim, that you don't have to return it and you can keep it for yourself, that's if you found one of them. If you find two or more than two, then you will have to return. And what's the reason? As we learned before, because minyan, if someone could identify the number, the amount of what was found, that's also a simon. So if two or more, that would be a simon. The Gemara explains the lashon of the braisa, my body. When it says that you have these branches or hooks, what does the word body over here mean? Shaychi. It means a branch that you hang things on it. My karele badi. Why is it called badi? Dava the tolebe midi bad karele. Something that's hanging on it is called a bad. And the Gemara brings an example regarding a branch. Kehi ditnan, as it says in the Mishnah, this is a Mishnah in Sukkah, regarding the arave that was brought in the Beis Hamikdash. It's not talking here about the arave in the lulav. It's talking here about the arave that was brought separately brought by the Mizbeach in the Beis Hamikdash. So according to one opinion, it says Ola echad bebad echad, that all you need is one arave, one bad, one branch with one leaf on it. So there the bad is the branch that the leaf is attached to or hanging on. So that's the same thing over here. A hook that's a branch that you hang things in it is called also a bad. Another thing the Braisa continues, that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, if you save something that a lion was going to attack and eat and take, or minadei from a bear, or minanemer from a leopard, or minabardalis. How do they translate bardalis there? They have a translation for bardalis? Okay, whatever that is. Or min zutte shel yam, or you save something from the tide of the sea, or mishlalisa shel nar, or when the river flowed over. So in all of these cases, so we learned this already before, we learned from the Pasuk that in such a case, it's avuda mikol adam, and this is something that there's no chiyuv to return. And then Reb Shimon ben Elazar added another thing, and this is what the Gemara is going to focus on to explain there. Hamaitze b'stratye, if you find something on a very big highway, which goes from one city to another, where there's a lot of people traveling there, or platye gedayla, or a very big plaza, where there's a lot of people that are gathered there together, ubechol makim sharab mitzayin sham, or in any place where there's many people that are gathered there. So over here, even if you find something that has a siman, you can keep it. You don't have to return it. Because in such a place where there's so many people, over here, the owner gives up on it. So here the Gemara is going to focus on this last point here. This halacha, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, a place where there's a rabbim, so if a person loses something there, he gives up on it. So the Shaila was asked about this. Regarding what case did Reb Shimon speak about? Ki ka'amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar b'reiv Kananim. Was Reb Shimon ben Elazar speaking about something that was left, or he lost it in a place where there's many people there, but it's mostly goyim? That's why he gives up on it. So in such a case, the person thinks that whoever finds it is going to say to himself, this is probably something that belongs to a guy, and therefore there's a yish over here. The owner gives up on it right away. Aval b'reiv Yisrael loy. But if it's in a place where there's taken many people, but it's mostly Yidden, in such a place, the owner does not give up on it. He hopes the one that finds it will realize it belongs to a Yid and will want to give it back. Or perhaps, Yisrael nami. Even in a place where it's Reiv Yisrael, even though in such a case, you could assume that it fell from a Yisrael, but nevertheless, the one that lost it thinks to himself that the one that finds it, because there's so many people over here, Taisva says, even amongst Yidden, there's Inchi Deloy Maili. There are people that just find something and take it for themselves and don't bother returning it. So in such a kind of place with such a big public of people, so a person that loses it will give up on it. That's the shaila. The Gemara continues and says, the Gemara is going to ask now a few shailas based on this. Even if you're going to say that Reb Shimon ben Elazar said his Allah even when it's mostly Yidden in this place where there's a lot of people there, you don't have to return it. The question is, pligi Rabbanan aleh, oiloi pligi. Do the Rabbanan argue on this opinion of Shimon ben Elazar or not? We see here in the Braisa, it quotes the opinion of Shimon ben Elazar, but it's not clear if he's a single one that said this opinion or the Rabbanan argued on him. Or maybe they agreed to him. If you're going to say that the Rabbanan did argue with Reb Shimon ben Elazar, in what case did they argue? B'roiv Yisrael vaday pligi. Should I say in a case where it's mostly Yidden, such a case there's less of a svara to say that the owner would be miyayish. It's in that case that they argued with Reb Shimon ben Elazar. And b'roiv Kananim, but when it comes to roiv Kananim pligi, oiloi pligi. Over here, there can still be a shaila. In such a case, would the Rabbanan disagree with Reb Shimon ben Elazar? Here there's much more of a svara, like Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, that there's a yish here. Furthermore, the Gemara that it says, "Vim tim tzaleima pligi." If you're going to say that the Chachamim argue afile b'roiv Kananim, even regarding a case of roiv Kananim, the Chachamim disagreed, and I want to say that you're still going to have to return it. Who's the halacha like? Halacha kamaisai, is the halacha like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, or ain't halacha kamaisai, or is the halacha not like Reb Shimon ben Elazar? Further, the Gemara asks, Im tim tzaleima halacha kamaisai. If we'll say that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, is that dafke b'roiv Kananim? Do we pass like Reb Shimon ben Elazar specifically in a place where it's many people and those are all goyim or mostly goyim, and that's why you don't have to return it? Or yafila b'roiv Yisrael. Or you pass like Reb Shimon ben Elazar even regarding a case which is roiv Yisrael. Okay, so this all boils down to this one Nekuda here. It's understanding Rav Shimon Elazar's opinion, understanding whether the Rabbanan argue, but the Gemara wants to know whether this applies dafke by Rav Kananim or even by Rav Yisrael. Okay, so the whole Amshel Gemara is going to discuss this subject. So Tashema, let's bring a raya from what it says in the following brayse. Hamaitza mais bebatik nesiyis ubatim midrashis. You find money in a Beis HaKnesses or Beis HaMedrash, which would simply mean a shul. Whether a shul or Beis HaKnesses is a place designated for davening, Beis HaMedrash a place for davening and learning. Or in any place that there are many people there. So the Braisa says, you can keep it. The owner gives up on it, even if it's something that has a siman, the owner doesn't expect to get it back. That's the Braisa. So says the Gemara, who's speaking here in this Braisa? Who is the one that says that when there's many people, we say that because there's so many people, the owner gives up on it? Rav Shimon ben Elazar. So that this Braisa is Rav Shimon ben Elazar speaking. Shamet mina. If so, we could learn out from this Braisa that Afilu b'Rav Yisrael nami. That even in a case where there's many people there and it's mostly Yidden, that Rav Shimon ben Elazar says the owner gives up. Why? Because we're talking here about a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash, so it's Yidden. And says the Gemara, what is this Braisa speaking about when it says that he found money, the money is spread around. And if it's spread around, that was the first Mishnah of the Perek that says you find money spread around, that's something which is no simon for in the Rishus HaRabim, even if there's not many people, then you don't have to return it. So the Gemara asks right away, if it's a case where the money is just spread out and someone just dropped the money out of his pocket, so then why is it saying that you don't have to return this money because it's a place where there's many people there? Even if it's a place where you don't have all this traffic of people there, you still shouldn't have to return it because it has no simon, as we learned in the first Mishnah. So therefore the Gemara says, no, we have to say differently. In order, if you want to say that there's no proof here that Rav Shimon ben Elazar, so we'll say as follows: We're not talking about money that was spread out. We're talking about money that was dropped. It's in a bundle. So therefore, in such a case, there is a simon to this money. It's tzrurin. It's tied together in a bundle or in a wallet. So there's a simon here. So then why don't you have to return it? Because there's many people there. So the owner gives up on it. But when it says here the term batik nesiyais, what is it talking about? The batik nesiyais shal kananim. It's talking about batik nesiyais, not a shul for yidden to daven, but a batik nesiyais, a place of gathering for goyim. So maybe only by goyim did Rav Shimon ben Elazar say that the owner gives up. So the Gemara says, okay, you're interpreting batik nesiyas to be from goyim, but batim midrashis ma'ikal meimar. How about the term batim midrashis? Seemingly that's clearly talking about a bis medrash, a shul to learn in. So how could you say it's talking about goyim? Says the Gemara, batim midrashis didon. Yeah, you're right. Batim midrashis is talking about a bis medrash for Yidden, but the yasvi bohu kananim. But it's a bis medrash that has a lot of goyim that work there, whether the janitors, whether the people that are there for protection, for shaimrim. So there are a lot of goyim over there that are there as well. And therefore, the rabbim that's there, we go by these goyim. The Rashba over here explains in this Gemara, even though it's mostly Yidden, that there's just some goyim that are working there on the premises of the shul. It's still a Reiv Yidden more than the Kananim. So the Rashba says the Yidden come to daven and go. They're not taking care of the place. The goyim, they're the ones that are working and taking care of the place. They're cleaning and they're looking at every crack and every corner. So when the person loses something in such a place, so the people that are seeing things and paying attention to things that are lost are mostly goyim. So it's considered to be Reiv Kananim. Says the Gemara, Hashtra da'asas lahachi. So now that you're saying that this is the pshat of Beis Medrash, that there's the goyim that are working here, batik nesiyas nami didon the yasibu kananim. So even when it says batik nesiyas, it doesn't mean a place of gathering for goyim. It means a Beis Knesses where there's goyim working here. Tashema, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from another place. This is a Mishnah in Masechta Machshirin. It says there, Matzah Aveda. If you find an Aveda in a city, in a place, Im Reiv Yisrael, if it's mostly Yidden, Chayv Lachris, you have to return it. Im Reiv Kananim, if it's mostly Goyim, Ein Chayv Lachris, you don't have to return it. So this Mishnah seems to make a clear distinction between Reiv Yidden and Reiv Goyim. Man, who's the one that says that you follow the fact that there's so many people there and therefore the owner gives up on this? Rav Shimon ben Elazar. This is Rav Shimon ben Elazar speaking here. So Shamet Mino, don't we have a clear raya here that Ki Kam Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Rav Shimon ben Elazar that says that the owner gives up, that's B'Reiv Kananim. Aval B'Reiv Yisrael, as the Mishnah makes this distinction clearly. So the Gemara answers, no, I'll tell you, Mani Rabbanan. This distinction between Reiv Yisrael and Reiv Kananim, this is the Rabbanan speaking. So what that basically means is that the Rabbanon argue on Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Rav Shimon ben Elazar holds that there's no distinction if you lost it in a place there's many people. There's no distinction between Rav Yisrael and Rav Canaanim. But the Chachamim argue in a case, and they say when it's Rav Yisrael, you still have to return it. Says the Gemara, if so, tifshat mina, so we could at least answer the shaila, the ibaya we had before, the maidele Rabbanon Rav Shimon ben Elazar, but Rav Canaanim. That if Rav Shimon ben Elazar, if the Rabbanon argued and Rav Shimon ben Elazar, they only argued regarding Rav Yisrael. But by Rav Canaanim, they agreed to Rav Shimon ben Elazar that you don't have to return it. That's the distinction that this Mishnah is making, and we just said it goes according to the Rabbanon. Says the Gemara, Elo, no, if you don't want to resolve that ibaya, I'll tell you as follows. La'olam Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Really, this Mishnah we just quoted is Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Really, Rav Shimon ben Elazar holds if something is lost in a place where it's mostly Yidden, you don't have to return it as well. The owner gives up on it. But b'hacha, b'maya skinon, what is this brayso talking about? B'tomun. This is something which the person, you see that he hid it in a place. It's a place where there's a lot of people over there, but you can see that this person hid it over there. So if the person hid it over there, it's not even an Aveda. The person put it in a hiding place and he's planning on coming and taking it back. In fact, the Gemara, if that's what it's talking about, so and if it's a place where you see that the person hid it there, so then Maya Vidite Gabe. Why are you even taking it in the first place? What is it saying over here? That something which is in a place that it's hidden, then if it's Rav Yisrael, Chayav Lahachres. Why Chayav Lahachres? Leave it where it is. You see that the person hid this something in a crack, in a corner something, and you see the owner is planning on coming back. It's not an Aveda. Don't take it from there. Leave it there. Let the owner come back. And the Gemara brings a source for this. But nan, we learned here later in this Perek in the Mishnah, it says, Motzikli bashpa mechusa. You find a certain keli that's somewhere in a garbage dump and it's covered in a corner there. Lo yigabai, don't touch it, because what it probably means is the owner put it there, he hid it there, and he's going to come get it. Megule, if it's something which is just lying in the garbage dump open, then noit lemachres. So then it's a full keli. Probably someone lost it there. Take it and announce it to return it. So you see, when something is put somewhere, tomun, it's not an aveda. You're not supposed to touch it. So the Gemara says, over here, the case of this Mishnah is talking about Kedamar Rav Papa, like what Rav Papa said. This was a garbage dump that people put things there and they leave it there. It's a garbage dump that people dump things there and it's not made to be cleared out. And very often, it's left there for a long period of time. And then, and then, all of a sudden, they decided right away to clear out this place. In such a case, a person left something there, and he may have wanted to leave it there with the intention to come back, but now the place is going to be cleared out, and he's going to lose his item that he left it there. So Hanami over here as well, what this Mishnah is talking about is, he left it in a place where there's many, many people there that put things in this garbage dump, and he hid it there. He hid it there with the intention to come back because it usually doesn't get cleared out. But then it gets cleared out, so therefore now the person's going to lose it, and you have to return it to him. And that's the distinction that the Mishnah said. If it's Roiv Goyim, so you don't have any mitzvah to return it to the guy. If it's mostly Yidden, so then you have to return it. But if this would have been, though, a garbage dump that L'chatchila is designated to be cleared out right away, then you don't have to return it b'chlal, because that means that the owner just dumped it. He's not interested in keeping it b'chlal. You just put it in the garbage, so then you can keep it. You don't have to return it. Huh? Yeah, correct. The Gemara says we can say another pshat in this Mishnah that we're quoting here that makes a distinction if you lost it in a place of mostly Yidden and mostly Goyim. So Lo'ilam Rabbanan. Really, I can tell you that this Mishnah here is following the opinion of the Rabbanan. So the Gemara said before, if it follows the opinion of the Rabbanan, it seems to be saying that if it's mostly Goyim, then the owner is Meyayish. If it's mostly Yidden, then you can keep it. Again, if it's mostly Yidden, then you have to return it, that is. Okay, so the Gemara says, look again in the Lashon of the Mishnah, you'll see as follows. Mi katani hein shaloi. Does it say in the Mishnah that in a case where this is roiv goyim, no, in a case where it's mostly goyim, did it say hein shaloi? Ein chayiv lahachas katani. All it says is that you don't have to call it out. That's what it said. It didn't say shaloi that you can keep it. It said ein chayiv lahachas. What does this mean? What that means is, even in a case where it's mostly Goyim, you're not going to have to announce it because it's mostly Goyim. But you're not allowed to keep it for yourself either, because it could be that there's still a Yid in the minority that it belongs to, and therefore you have to keep it in your house, and a Yid that lost it will make a research about this, and will find out that you have it, and will come and claim it. That's what the Rabbanan was saying over here in this Mishnah. So, which means that the Rabbanan really, in essence, agree to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, whether it's most Canaanim or mostly Yidden. In such a case, you don't have a mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda to announce it and return it. But what the Rabbanan in this Mishnah are saying is, there's a distinction. If it's Reiv Yisrael, so not only you can't keep it, you chayiv to be machriz. You chayiv to do the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda to announce it. Because you know that it comes from a Yid. When it's Reiv Kanaanim, so in such a case, there is a Reiv of Kanaanim, so we follow the Reiv. So therefore, you don't have to announce it, you don't have the mitzvah to announce it, but you also can't keep it. It still might belong to a Yid. And therefore, you have to wait, the Yid will come. That's what the Rabbanan hold. But according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, though, it comes out according to this, Rab Shimon ben Elazar does disagree with the Rabbanan a little bit, because Rab Shimon ben Elazar holds that even in a case of Reiv Kanaanim, you still have the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda. You have to call it out and give it to him. Toshama, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from another psak din that we saw, the Omer Ravasi. Ravasi paskin the following halacha: Matzah chavis yayin b'yisher ruba Kananim. If you find a barrel of wine in a city that's mostly goyim, muteres mishum metzia. As far as the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aved is concerned, so this is allowed. You can keep it. You don't have to return it. V'asur ba'ano. But on the other hand, though, you can't have any anah from this, because this is the stam wine of a goy that chachamim will goyze it. The stam wine of a goy you can't have any anah from. So you can't use it at all. If a Yid comes along and gives a siman for this barrel of wine, so then muteres b'shtiyeh l'moitza. So then now you know that it doesn't belong anymore to any of the Canaanim, and the one that finds it is allowed to keep it actually, even though the Yid is giving a siman. Because this Yid that's giving a siman now, he gave up on it because he lost it in a place which is Reiv Canaanim. So now the one that found it is going to be able to keep this. Now, come on, according to who did Ravasi paskin this way? Rab Shimon ben Elazar. He's paskin according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar that even an item that has a siman, but if it's in a place of Reiv Canaanim, the owner gave up on it already. So even though he gives a siman now, it's too bad, it's too late. So Shmami no. So what I see from here is Ki Kam Rab Shimon ben Elazar b'Reiv Kanaanim. So Ravasi is paskening this way only regarding this barrel of wine, which is found where in a place where it's mostly Kanaanim. Aval b'Reiv Yisrael loy. If it would have been a place where it's a lot of people, but it's mostly Yidden, and there's one Yid that comes and gives a siman, you would have to return it. Says Gemara, no, not necessarily. I can tell you, Rab Shimon ben Elazar afilu b'Reiv Yisrael nami ka'amar. Rab Shimon ben Elazar himself, his opinion is that if you lose it even in a place of Reiv Yisrael, you still do not have to return it. Ravasi agrees to Rab Shimon ben Elazar on one point, regarding if it's many people that you don't have to return it. But he disagrees with him on another point. Ravasi made a distinction if it's Reiv Goyim or Reiv Yidin. So Ravasi did not pass him fully like Rab Shimon ben Elazar. But we have no raya what Rab Shimon ben Elazar's own opinion is. And how the Gemara goes back to explain here the pshat in the first psak din that Ravasi said that if you find this barrel of wine, so it's mutter for you to take it because there's no mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda, but it's also bahano. So the Gemara asks, if this barrel of wine that you know belongs to a guy, so if it's also bahano, so miteres mishum metzia lamai ilchasa. What's the point to say that you can keep it, even that this metzia, you don't have a mitzvah to return it, but you can't do anything with it anyways. It's also bahano, so you should just leave it there. Ravashi says, Ravashi, the relevance of this halacha is lekankana. Even if the wine you can't keep for yourself, and you can't even have hana from it either, but for the barrel itself, if you wash it out and you kasher it properly, the barrel could be valuable for you to keep as well. The Gemara brings another story that can bring it to be a proof to the halacha of Rab Shimon, of what Rab Shimon ben Elazar meant. There was a story with a person, the Ashkach Arba Zuzi Ditzairi Bisadina. He found 4 zuzim that were tied up in a handkerchief, and v'shad benara Biran, and it was thrown into the river of Biran. That's where it was found. Asla came to Rav Yehuda. So the one that found it came to Rav Yehuda, and he asked him, could he keep it? Does he have to return it? Amalei, Rav Yehuda tells him, Zil achris, go, announce it and return it. So the Gemara asks on this, why is he telling him to return it? V'ha zute shoyam. This is the halach of zute shoyam, when you have the sea, the tide of the sea that drags something into the yam, and the same thing with a river, where it floods into the river, and over here, this is found in a river, it's avuda mikol adam, you shouldn't have to return this. So the Gemara answers, no, Shani Nahar Biron, this case where they found this money in this river Biron is a different kind of a river, because Kivin the Miskel Lemeyayish, they put a lot of stumbling blocks in this river. The fishermen put some stumbling blocks in there in order to catch fish, and therefore a person that loses something in this river does not give up on it, because as we'll see soon in the Gemara, the way they would do this river is every once in a while they would put a dam by this river, and they would sort of drain out the water and then clear out the stumbling blocks and all the thing, and then they would find different things there besides fish that they would catch, but they would find also different things over there. So every once in a while they did that in this kind of river. So therefore the person that loses it there does not give up on this. That was the psak din that Rav Yehuda said. Now the Gemara comes back to the ibaya that we were discussing here regarding the Shimon ben Elazar's opinion. By this river of Biron, it's mostly Goyim that are there. And what did it say over here? So over here you see that even though it's a place which is mostly Goyim, but nevertheless, Rav Yehuda paskin that you should return it. So certainly Rav Shimon ben Elazar by Rav Kananim said that you don't have to return it. So it must be that we see here that we don't paskin like Rav Shimon ben Elazar, even regarding a case of Rav Kananim. So the Gemara answers, no, Shani Nahar Biron. There's another thing regarding this river Biron, which is different, even though it's mostly Goyim that are living around this river, but nevertheless, who's the one that takes care of this river? Who's the one that used to do all the work there? The Yisrael Sachrule. It's the Yidden that placed the dam by the river to drain it out, and the Yisrael Karule, and then it's the Yidden that dig and clear it out. So given the Yisrael Sachrule, since it's the Yidden that are the ones that dam the river, and they're the ones also that later that clear it out. So Eimer, I would say, Mi Yisrael Nafal. It's the Yidden that are the ones that take care of this river. So whatever lost money probably fell from a Yid, and we given the Yisrael Karule Lo Miyayish. And the Yid that lost it there knows that it's the Yidden that are going to discover this lost item there when they dig it out, when they clear out this river. So therefore the owner does not give up on this. So therefore this is not a raya that we don't paskin like Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Another story the Gemara brings here in connection to this. Rav Yehuda was walking behind Shmuel in the marketplace. Which marketplace? The Beidaisa marketplace where they sell the daisa. This is the pounded wheat that's made for the hot cereals. Amalei, so Rav Yehuda asks Shmuel, Motzakan arniki mao. What's the halacha if I find a wallet of money right over here? Amalei arei l'shaloi. So he tells him, you can keep it. You find it over here, you can keep it. So now then he asks him, how about if Bo Yisrael v'nosam b'simin mao? What's if a Yid comes along and gives me a simin for this wallet? Do I have to return it to him or not? Amalei chayev lahachse. So he says, yeah, if a Yid comes and gives you a simin, you have to return it. So the Gemara asks, Tarti Amalei, he's telling him two things that are a contradiction. First, he's telling him that if you find it here, you can keep it. So that sounds like it's following what we said before, that if it's a place which is many people, and so therefore the owner gives up and you can keep it. And then he tells him, but if a Yid comes and gives a siman, you do have to return it. It's a contradiction. So the Gemara says, you're right, it's only Lifni Meshura Sadin. He was telling him, Lifni Meshura Sadin, that you have to return it. Shmuel, like the story with the father of Shmuel, Ashkach Hana Chamori b'Madbera. So there were these donkeys that were lost in the desert, and he found it, this father Shmuel, and he returned it to the owner after 12 months. In other words, according to Rashi, the pshat over here is that he noticed that these donkeys were lost, and then 12 months later they were still lost, and he went and took it, and then he returned it to the owner even 12 months later. And this is even though the owner definitely gave up on it. There was already a year share when he took it. Lifnim Meshura Sadin, but he returned it only Lifnim Meshura Sadin. Taisus has a different shot that these were donkeys that this person was taking care of. And after such a long period of time, it cost some money to feed them, to take care of them. And he wanted to sell and give up these donkeys and then just return the money, the value of the donkeys to the owner. And Lifnim Meshura Sadin, he kept his donkeys in his possession for all this time and fed them and took care of them to return the donkeys itself to the owner. Another story the Gemara says, Rava was walking behind Rav Nachman in the marketplace, the Gildoi of the shoemakers or of the tanners. Or it was in a shuk where the Rabbanon buy things. So he asks Rav Nachman, if you find a wallet of money here, what's the halach? Do you have to return it or not? You can keep it. He asks him, if a Yid comes and gives a simin, what's the halacha then? So he again said, even if you gave a simin, you still don't have to return it. So the Gemara says, "V'haloi oimed v'tzeveach." But this person is screaming and saying, "I have a simon. It's mine." So why don't you have to return it? So the Gemara says, "Nase kitzeveach al beisay shenafal vasvinase shetava b'yam." It's like a person that's screaming about his house that already collapsed, or his boat that is sunk in the water. He's screaming about something that's already gone and lost from him. Once you're miyayish, the Torah says that makes it hefker. It's not yours anymore. The yish is a hefker. So therefore, the fact that he's screaming and saying that it's his, it could be it was his, but it's not his anymore.
It's not miyayish.
Huh? No. He is miyayish on it. This is in a place where you found it in a shuk, in a place where it's a public, and therefore he was miyayish on it, even if it had a simon. Right? So therefore, even now, if he screams that this is my simon, we still don't return it to him. Another story the Gemara brings, and this connects back to the halacha of Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Hahu dayai the shokal bisra b'shukah. There was this dayai bird. What kind of bird is it? I don't know how they translated over there, but some kind of bird with a vulture with a beak that came and grabbed a piece of meat in the marketplace, picked it up and flew with this piece of meat. V'shadye b'tzanyasa the Bava Metzia, and it dropped this piece of meat amongst the palm trees of the individual by the name of Bava Metzia. So Bava Metzia came to ask Abaye whether you can keep this piece of meat that the bird dropped there. Amalei, Sabaya tells him, Zilshkoila nafshich, you can take it, keep it for yourself. So the Gemara says, let's see what Abai paskin here. Vaharuba Yisrael ninu. The marketplace where he took the meat from, this was kosher meat that he took. So it's mostly eaten over there. So Shamet Mina, so if so, we can prove from here that Allah Rab Shimon ben Elazar, that Abai is paskening like Rab Shimon ben Elazar, and that's a filibit of Yisrael, even in a place where the bird took this meat from a place where there's mostly Yidden, but still we say that once it was a place that you lost it in Reiv Yisrael, the owner gives up and you can keep it. So the Gemara answers, no, this is not shaykh to what Rab Shimon ben Elazar said. Why? Shani dayoy. This case of this vulture that comes and picks up this piece of meat and flies away with it, that's a different story. The kizutoy shel yam dami. This is like when something gets flooded by a river or by the sea, where the owner gives up on it. It's zutoy shel yam. It's avuda mikol adam over here. You don't have to return it. Now the Gemara asks another question on this though. Forget about the halacha of Metzia. Frag the Gemara, but v'ha'amar Rav, didn't Rav say that basar shenis alim and ayin, that any meat, kosher meat, but there wasn't the eyes of a yid that were on it constantly, and it wasn't you don't know if this is the actual original meat from where it came from. Also, it's also to eat this meat. So if this daya took the meat from a kosher butcher shop in a marketplace, and then it flew with it, and we didn't see where this vulture went, and it dropped it then by these palm trees of Bava Metzia, how do you know it's the original meat? That says the Gemara, Bava Metzia was sitting there and he actually saw the whole thing. The marketplace wasn't too far from his house. He was able to see how it's this bird that picked it up and dropped it by his trees. So therefore, there's no basal shenis alim and ayin. Final story here the Gemara brings on this. Rab Chanine Matza Gedi Shochut. Rab Chanine found a slaughtered goat between the cities of Tveria and Tzipairi. V'tiru, they allowed him to keep it. They allowed him to eat the meat as well. So Rabami explains, they allowed him to keep it, even though there's a mitzvah to return a mitzvah. That's because Rab Shimon ben Elazar, like Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, he found it in a place that there are many people that go there, so therefore he can keep it. And Mishum Shchita, now he allowed him to keep it, even though you don't know who was the sheikhet of this meat that you found. Rab Chanine benoy shel Rab Yesi Aglili, based on what Rab Chananya that is. Rab Chananya, the son of Rab Yesi ben Aglili, said. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, Harei sha'avduloi gedoye v'tarna goylov. A person lost his goats or his chickens, and he goes and he finds that it was shechted, and he doesn't know is it a kosher shechita or not. Rabbi Yehuda oiser. Rabbi Yehuda says that it's aser. You can't rely that it was a kosher shechit. Rab Chananya benoy Rabbi Yisrael glili mater. He says that it's allowed. You rely that it's a good shechit. This is based on the rule that the Gemara says in Chulin and different places. Roiv mitzuyin eitzel shechita mumchenein. Regarding shechita, we rely on the fact that most people that are shechting are experts and are good shechtim. So therefore, it was mutter. So the Gemara now says about this that Amar Rabbi said about this machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Chananya, niren devre Rabbi Yehuda keshemotzam ba'ashpa. Rabbi Yehuda that says that you can't rely that it was a good shechita, that Rabbi Yehuda is right if it was found in the garbage. So then it probably wasn't a good shechita, and that's why it was thrown in the garbage. And v'devre Rabbi Chananya b'noi Rabbi Yesi Aglili keshemotzam b'bayis. If you find it in a house or if you find it in another place like that where it wasn't dumped, so then it was probably a good shechita. Okay, so now the Gemara says, if this is a case where they will mat him to eat it because of shchita, we assume that it's a good sheichet, but it must be Ruba Yisrael Ninu, that this is an area which is mostly Eden. So therefore, amongst those mostly Eden, it was probably a good sheichet, and therefore they allowed him to eat it. So if so, Shamit Mina, so we can learn out from here that halacha Rab Shimon ben Elazar, they allowed him to keep it, and he doesn't have the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda. We pass like Rab Shimon ben Elazar that it's in a place of a public, you can keep it, and that's a Philip of Yisrael. Even in a case where it's mostly Yidden, the owner still gives up on it. So the Gemara says, not necessarily is there a raya from here. Omar Rava says, no, Roiv Kananim. It's a case between Sipairi and Tverye. It could have been a case where there were mostly Kananim there, but Roiv Tafchi Yisrael. It was a case that most of the Sheikhtim in that place were all Yidden. So therefore they allowed him to keep it. Another case just like this, Rab Ami Ashkach Pargiyos Shchutais. He found Pargiyos Shchutais, which are some kinds of birds. What do they have there? Some kind of pigeons that were shechted, that were also found between the cities Tveria and Tzipairi. Asla Kamed Ravasi, they came to Ravasi, Vamrul Kamed Rav Yechanan, or to Rav Yechanan, Vamrul Medrasha, or they came into the Bis Medrash, and he asked them if you can keep it. Vamrul Zilshkol Nafshech, you can keep it for yourself. By the way, regarding these two cases here, I forgot to mention, for also regarding the case of Chanina, the Rishonim discussed, here the Gemara doesn't bring up the subject of Basa Shenis Alam and Ayin. Some Rishonim want to say that from this piece of Gemara it's proven that there's no issue of Basa Shenis Alam and Ayin. There's different pshatim over here. Why over here the Gemara doesn't bring it up? In another case, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafke, Ashkach Kibura, the Azli Be'azluye, he found a Kibura, this is the rope that's used to create nets out of it for the fish catchers. So he found this big bundle of ropes that they use. So Asla Kamed Rabbi Yechanan came to ask Rabbi Yechanan about this, or he came to the Bis Medrash. He found it in a place that there's many people there. And they told him, Zil Shkoil Enafshech, you can take it and keep it for yourself.